Hi guys, welcome back to the Dell PowerEdge R710 build series part 3. Alright, so in this video we're going to focus on the processors. So under the fan shroud here there's a little window that shows you this is processor number 1, this is processor number 2, and if you lift this fan shroud out of the way you can clearly see the CPU heat sinks, and of course underneath them are the processors. And today we're going to be upgrading them with these processors. What's under the heatsink currently are some 5500 series CPUs, and this motherboard supports the Westmere 5600 series processor, so that's what we're going to upgrade to. And let me just kind of take these out and show you what I have. Okay, there's one. And there is the other. So these are processors from my inventory, and they've already been cleaned and tested and everything, so they're basically good to go. But this is, let's see if, I don't know if you can see that in the camera there. Hopefully, let's see if I can get some light on it. Okay, so anyway, these are the L5640 Westmere processors. Now you might be wondering, well, you know, since I'm upgrading, why am I only upgrading to an L5640, right? It's not exactly the fastest Westmere processor. Well, this is my reasoning. When it comes to a 11th gen Dell servers, which are, you know, the Westmere generation of 5500, 5600 series Xeons, or any other brand of server that supports this generation of processors, I don't really look at it as a high compute or high performance compute platform anymore. And the reason being that if you look at some of the faster Westmere processors like the X5690 or the X5680 or even the X5675, they are relatively expensive. And especially the X5690 is, you know, still a very expensive processor. And yes, they're, you know, those are going to be higher performing than this L5640. But if you look at it from a bang for your buck perspective, that money is better spent rather on instead of a 5690, you're better spending it on a Sandy Bridge or even Ivy Bridge generation system and processor, and you'll get, you know, better IPC, you'll get more cores, and you'll get better energy efficiency. So when it comes to, you know, the Westmere generation of servers, I really don't look at it as a option for high performance compute anymore. But that said, doesn't mean that this platform is obsolete. Not everybody needs, you know, the 3 gigahertz and above clock speeds and fast processing. This is still a great server because for one, you know, it can give you enough cores. There's 6 cores, 12 cores, 24 threads, right? So, you know, that's plenty for a lot of applications. It's got a very good high RAM capacity for, you know, its generation. And so, you know, if you have things that you're running that doesn't require the fastest compute power, and you need, you know, lots of memory, you need, you know, up to say 24 threads, 12 cores, this is still a very viable option. But I just wouldn't consider paying for the high-end processors, because that money is better put to use if you buy a Sandy Bridge or Ivy Bridge processor and basically, you know, buy a newer generation server. So that said, I exclude out the high performance processors. Obviously, you know, the lowest performance processors are the lowest end, and so not the most desirable. But what I find to be a really, really good compromise that's in between the high end and the low end is this L5640. It is a 6-core, you know, so 12 threads each. So that's again 12 cores, 24 threads. So, you know, you still have the number of cores, and it's a little bit slower, but it's one of the most energy efficient processors of this generation. So instead of looking at this as a high performance compute, you know, server, which, you know, it really isn't of great value when you look at the cost of building something like that with this generation, instead of looking at it from that perspective, looking at it from a relatively energy efficient server that has enough RAM capacity and core capacity for certain applications, virtualization being one of them, for example, storage servers also being another option. I tend to find that this L5640 is just the right balance for deriving the best value out of this platform. So anyway, with that said, we're going to go ahead and swap out these processors. So I'm going to take out the old processors. We're going to have to clean the bottom of these heat sinks. These have the original Dell factory thermal compound on them. And so I'm going to clean them off with this alcohol. So let me go ahead and put these processors aside for now. All right, so let's go ahead with this. So Dell's made this very nice. There are no screws to unscrew here. There's basically these two tension levers, and then that releases the whole CPU cooler heatsink. Now, if you haven't removed these in a while, the thermal compound may have hardened already, and so this might be kind of stuck, as you can see here. So usually in a situation like this, what I like to do to break it loose is just kind of twist it a little bit. Don't twist it a lot because it's still going to be sitting in these brackets. But if you kind of move it like that a little bit, it tends to break it free, and then it comes right out. Okay, so let's do the same thing. Let me put these levers down. Let's do the same thing here. Okay, this one is already loose, so that's good. All right, so we have some the factory thermal compound on here. It's very dry, and so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Now, earlier I said I have the alcohol here, and you could just start wiping, with a paper towel and some alcohol. But when it's this hard, I usually like to just scrape it off first. So since I'm going to try to do this on camera, let's put this back here, and I'll use a napkin here just to kind of catch the scrapings. And I've got my label peeler tool, the plastic one, and we'll just kind of start scraping these off. I'll make sure to do this on top of the paper napkin here so that I don't drop anything in the server. Okay, so when you have really dried thermal compound, I find that scraping it off is the more efficient way to kind of get rid of it. And then we'll wipe that over with the alcohol in a little bit here, but let me take care of the second one here too as well. Okay, so just use the plastic scraper, and use a plastic scraper. Don't use a metal one because that will tend to scratch the metal. This is a plastic tool, so there's just really no possibility of me scratching up the original heatsink. Alright, so that's all removed. Let me just wipe off my tool, and we'll fold this up neatly so that we don't drop anything into the server here. Probably best not to do this on top of your server, but since I've got the camera set up for this right now, this is where I'm doing it. But normally I would take this to my workbench and just do it on workbench. But all right, so anyway, we got that taken care of. I've got a clean paper towel, and we're just gonna wet this down. Just maybe twice, okay, with the alcohol. And then all we have to do is just wipe this clean. Alright, so you can see some of it has come off. So the scraping doesn't usually take off all of it. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good there. Let's take care of the second one. Alright, that looks great. Maybe a little bit more here. Alright, perfect. Alright, and like I said, the L5640s that I just showed you, they've already been cleaned, they've been tested. Those are the ones I sell in my store, by the way, so if you're interested in picking up a pair of these L5640 processors for your Dell R710 or other Westmere generation server, check out my eBay store. Alright, so let's remove the air shroud again and put that over here. And let's start with the first processor. Alright, so all you have to do is, here, let me see if I can do this without obstructing the camera view, but basically there's this single lever here. You press down on it and release it from the latch and let it go, and then that will allow this bracket to come up. Alright, and so we'll, now these, as far as picking up the processor, there's two kind of openings on the socket from here and here, and I tend to like to put my finger in those positions to hold the processor. So I'll kind of lever it up and pick it up. Okay, so here is the L5640, and we have to make note of where the notches are. So it's right there and here, so it should go down this way. And again, I'm going to hold it in this fashion so that I can kind of drop it down gently without actually dropping it. Okay, and making sure that it's seated correctly. And then we just put that bracket back down and pull down the lever and latch it up. So that's it. So that's installation number one complete. We'll repeat the same for the second processor here. Okay. And again, I like to just reach in where there's an opening in the socket and pick it up that way. And be very careful when you're picking up these processors. You don't want to drop them down. It could end up damaging the pins. Although, you know, if that does happen to you, by the way, you know, don't worry. There, you can use tiny tweezers and kind of fix the pins. I've done that before and had servers running for years afterwards like that. So it's not the end of the world, but you know, if you can avoid damaging the socket, might as well avoid it, right? So okay, again, the notch is right here. And oftentimes with dual socket processors, you'll notice that the orientation is basically the opposite. Remember how this one, the notch was kind of on this side, and the notch for the second processor is on that side. Oh. Okay, just kind of making sure that it's seated correctly, and then let's put the pressure plate down, and then apply the hold down lever. Okay, so now the processors are installed. We have to apply new thermal compound. So as far as thermal compounds go, there are three, in case you guys are curious, there are three types of thermal compounds I usually have with me. This is one of my favorites. It's called Protronics Series 7 thermal paste. This is not the best thermal paste in the world, okay? And you know, that's not because, by the way, it's not because it's overheats my processors or my GPUs or anything. I've never overheated anything using this. I'm just saying it's not the best because if you look at the thermal conductivity value, it's not the best compared to others, like the other ones I'm going to show you in a little bit. But one of the things I love about this Protronics, and I bought this on Amazon, by the way, you can find it. I don't have an affiliated link or anything like that, so just go ahead and find it yourself, is that this is really cheap. For this tube, which I think is like 30 grams, I think I paid like $7 for it. Okay, so this is really great for testing things where you're just, short-term application, you're just, applying it temporarily to test something out. Like all the processors I sell are fully tested, so I go through a lot of this stuff, and it just doesn't make sense to use some really expensive thermal compound when you're applying it for the 10-15 minutes that you're testing the machine or the item. So I use this and then I wipe it off. As you can see, the processors are clean afterwards. But this is great for testing. So if you're doing a lot of testing, this is really great. And also, you know what? Recently, I noticed that they're selling something called Series 9 thermal paste under the same brand, and the thermal conductivity value is actually a lot better. So, and that's also not very expensive. So check that out. I haven't actually tried the Series 9 one yet, but I'm very curious about it. As soon as I'm done with this one, I'm going to go buy the Series 9 for my testing. All right, so that said, what I'm probably going to use today is this Arctic MX4. And this is kind of my go-to for long-term applications. So then this is going to be a permanent installation for these processors, so I'm going to be using this today. Now, if I'm feeling like I want to spoil my server a little bit, I do have a small tube of this ProLimaTech PK3. And so that's another thermal compound that I use sometimes. But for the most part, for long-term installation, permanent installations, I do like to use this MX4. All right, so let's go ahead and apply this. Now, if you've been around computer hardware for a while, you know that the subject of how to apply your thermal compound is one of those religious topics that everybody's got a different opinion about, and everybody thinks that their method is better. So, I'm not here to debate that. I'm sure we can have some fun times debating that somewhere else, but I'm going to show you the way I tend to apply it, and it's always worked for me. So never had any problems with it. So what I use is this piece of card, my Craftsman card. So I used to be a Craftsman card member, and used to buy my tools at Sears a lot, but not recently. So I don't need this card anymore. I've cut a piece of it. All you really need is a plastic card that's relatively thick. I cut it to just about the right width for applying thermal paste. So that's why it's cut to that width. All right, so let me go ahead and open this up. Wow, this is really tight for some reason. All right, let me see if I can open this. All right, there we go. Okay, so I basically just apply a line of thermal paste and then I spread it with the card I just showed you. All right, that's all we'll need. Okay, so that's it. Let me go ahead and close this up. And then I use the card, and I'll just gonna go ahead and spread it until the entire surface of the IHS is covered. Now, it doesn't really matter so much how smooth or evenly you apply this, because once the heat sink is on top, it's all going to get squished flat anyway. But my kind of approach to this is just to make sure that I have maximum coverage of the contact surface. So I don't want to leave any surface that I believe is going to be in contact with the heatsink to be bare. Okay, so that's pretty much ready to go on that one. Let's do the same on the second. Get this out of the way. Now I know a lot of people apply the dot method, where you basically put a dot of thermal compound in the middle and then you apply the heatsink and expect the pressure of the heatsink to spread this thermal compound evenly across the IHS. And I used to do that as well, but what I've noticed sometimes, and this really depends on the heatsink design and the size of the IHS and all that stuff. The more modern processors have a really large IHS surface, right? And so now I'll go ahead and I think that's done, so I'm gonna go ahead and clean it off here. What I found was that sometimes it just didn't spread all the way, and that was particularly on this generation of processors. And the newer ones, they tend to apply a lot of pressure. This doesn't really apply that much pressure, so if you have a thick thermal compound that's not very liquidy, it just doesn't spread that well, So since kind of seeing that, I've been I changed this method, and this, just always works. Every time I take the processor off, I always see the thermal compound completely spread across the entire IHS. So that's kind of why I've stuck to this method. All right, so let's go ahead and put the heat sinks back on. Let's do CPU number 1 first. So let's see if I remember how this goes. Like this. Okay. And so try to do this evenly, applying pressure on both sides at the same time. Alright, that's down. One more to go. Alright, let's make sure that lever is up. And then again, even pressure on both levers. All right. Okay, and that's it. All right, guys, so that's the CPU upgrade on a R710. And hopefully you guys find that useful, and if you're upgrading your own processors. And again, if you're interested in picking up a pair of the L5640 Xeons, check out my store. I will leave a link in the description for you. All right, well, thanks for watching, guys, and give me a like on this video if you liked it, and please subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.